Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Good Mom. I'm Sunny. Of course, I'm here with my friend Lindsay.
Hi,
Hi.
everybody.
And in these episodes, we try to share tips with you guys, things that we've learned as moms. And Lindsay, I think one of the biggest things and biggest questions that I have now as a mom is how do I help my children become good humans
Yeah.
in this fast changing world, right?
Yeah.
Because things are moving and changing so fast,
Yeah.
and things are not what they used to be, and things are not functioning the way that they used to function. And
Nope.
everything's kind of feels a little topsy turvy depending on the day.
Yep.
And we're moving away from this structure of I'm the parent and I know everything and I'm going to teach my kid
Yeah.
to really letting our kids flourish because they're coming in with a lot of wisdom that, quite frankly, we didn't have or haven't had for a long time or have been programmed out of thinking that
Correct.
way,
Yes.
right?
Love this. And
Yeah.
I love this topic. I just spent 4 days with a lot of people in a room talking about stuff like this. So, you know, I think that why we're here as parents is because we're meant to be the people that help this next generation find their way to
Yes.
the new human. There are many authors and speakers talking about the new human today. I'm not going to go into the details, but there just are a lot. And if you start digging into that, you're going to realize that our children are coming in. So I'm going to back the train up just a little with a slight hint as to what's happening for each one of us. It happened to us if we were alive on the planet and we're still alive, but
Yep.
it's happening with your kids. So let's say you have a child between the age of 0 and 7. When we come into this world, brain science shows that the brain is functioning at a wavelength that is more like a scanner, an observer, a take it all in and try to do something with it kind of brainwave. So I say, and this is how I communicate it, that it's scanning the environment for safety, approval, and control. And no matter what happens in any given day, the brain is learning whether or not the thing that just happened made that individual feel safe, approved of, or in control. And that's happening for about 7 years of
Yes.
life. So if you have little kids, whether you like it or not, you're programming them. And they are learning from you. No matter what you're doing, they're watching you, they're hearing you. I even watched a video this weekend that showed how a fetus inside a mother's womb, when there was an argument between the mother and the father, how the fetus literally jumped inside the womb. And that is programming the mind of this new person coming in. So, what I would say to parents is this: you have an opportunity to help raise your children with a new program. But in order to do that, you might have to change your own program.
That's the tough part.
That's the tough part. It's sort of like this. I used this analogy the other day. If I handed you an iPhone 22, which doesn't exist yet, okay, and you
That we
can
know
operate,
of.
or that we know of, in our hands, it's not here.
Right.
But an iPhone 22 ends up in your hands, and you've been operating on an iPhone 8,
Yeah.
okay? And you're going to teach the iPhone 22 what programs, what apps it needs, how to work. No, that iPhone probably could dance circles around you, let alone your iPhone 8. Okay. This is your kid. Your kid is coming into the world as an iPhone 22, and you have the programming skills of an 8. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you're not capable. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that what you might have to do is take some time to get to know what your kid knows.
Yes.
And that's a different model. So, do you
Yes.
want to say something about that? You look like
There's so much to say
I
about
know,
that.
just
Yeah.
where we begin.
And it's such a challenge based on what society says a parent should be and a parent should do, right?
Right.
So it really does require not listening to that type of advice that, like I said, is I'm the parent and I'm going to tell you what to do and I know better, because the truth is, in this situation, you actually don't.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
takes a big person to admit that someone that was recently that was recently born, or doesn't have
Yeah.
as much time on this planet as
Younger.
you
Hmm.
do,
Yeah.
actually understand. See, what they understand is where we're going. They
Yes.
may not understand it, everything as it is now, but here's the fact: you don't really want them to really grab on to what things are right now on our planet, because things are changing. What
Yeah.
you want is to be able to prepare them for the life that they're going to have on this planet. So you really want them to tap in to that, wisdom that they have
Absolutely.
and run with it, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so Lindsay, we have, 3 different things that parents can keep in mind in this whole process. So let's give you the first tip here. Give your kids the freedom to use their imagination. Create spaces that feel safe and engaging, where kids can explore, make choices, and safely experience the outcomes of those choices. So you're not necessarily telling them how to think, feel, and whatever. You're saying, here's a huge area where you can explore, and I'm going to make sure that you're protected so you can use that wisdom that you've been given to explore and figure things out on your own. And that's not saying that you're leaving your kid high and dry or anything like that. You are creating the space for them to be themselves.
Yeah. And I used to do this with my kids, and I would tell them, here's the guardrails. Don't exit the guardrails.
Yep.
Go do some stuff.
Yeah. It's true.
And you're going to be okay, because I've got the edges covered. But here's the edges, here's the
Yes.
guardrails. You do what you need to do inside that. And they understand that. They know what that means, even at a very young age. Your kids, if they're younger than, say, 20 now, they know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very important thing. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about imagination too, because I know we could do an entire episode on that. So
Yeah, because it is. It's super powerful, and
It's
so many times, I know we've talked about this in other episodes. We're so focused on filling every single moment. Like, my kids can't be bored. We need to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. The more you do that, the less they can tap into their imagination and really think outside this proverbial box that we've been trapped in for a very long time. And that's what we need our kids to do.
We do. And I want to point to that too, because we live in a world that we created, all of us as a collective, humanity, everything that we see today, everything that's on this planet Earth, we created it based on imagination that existed sometime previous. We imagined this and then we created it. Mm-hmm. I know we may not like all of our creations, but that's a whole other story.
Right.
What we need is for our children to be imagining a world that we want to live in, because they are the creators of it. Yeah. All the new is going to come from them. I remember thinking about my kids telling me, what if we never had homework? And I used to look them straight in the eye and go, there will come a day when that doesn't exist.
Yep.
Homework will not exist. And they're like, and I go, if you believe in it, you will create it. Because there's a world that I could visualize where homework doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. And
Absolutely.
So I don't know what you're doing right now, listener, if you're driving, if you're on a bike, if you're whatever you're doing. Take a minute and try to imagine something that you would love to see in the world to become a reality, whatever that is. Just take a minute, 1 minute. Every ounce of energy that gets funneled towards what we want is what the universe goes into action around creating.
That's right.
Every single ounce of it.
Yeah.
So I spend most of my meditation time imagining the world that I want to be in. Yes. Not the one that comes at me through TV and other experiences. It's what's the world I want to be in.
Yes. And that's such a good transition. That leads us to our second tip, which is help your children to see that they're powerful. And Lindsay, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about manifestation, which is a very powerful tool. And we need to encourage our kids and to help them realize that they can attract. This is the law of attraction. If you're going to be mean and nasty, that's what you're going to attract.
Yeah.
But if you want to have a different life that's meaningful, where you uplift and inspire people, well, then that's the type of person that, you need to be, and that will come your way. Right? So it's this whole law of attraction, and that you really are powerful enough to make these things happen.
Well, and I think even for our listeners, this can be a hard thing to imagine.
Sure.
But literally everything that comes towards you, you created.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like, what? No way. I didn't create that. Let me give you a story that'll be a little more palatable. But for every one of us, we have one like this. When my daughter was in high school, she had a math teacher that literally was probably Darth Vader. He's at least related to Darth Vader, okay? So his way of teaching and his ability to teach gifted kids, or any kids, honestly, was challenged. And he was so egocentric and so into his own world that he didn't understand the kids. And my daughter would come home in tears. First of all, she was stressed about not having an A. Then she was stressed about this teacher not understanding her, and, all these things. Yeah. I sat her down one day and I said, sweetheart, you're attracting this to you. You are bringing this to you by your resistance to what he's doing. Yeah. Every time you do that, he's a this or he's a that, you're just bringing more of it, because you're meeting the energy with your energy, and you're just going to create more. So I have a suggestion. Why don't you take a minute and just sit here for a minute and just think about either A, him doing it differently, or B, you receiving it like it's a duck with water. So water on the head falls right off. Doesn't even matter. You don't care. You can choose either one, but I want you to imagine that. And she did. And I'll tell you, within a week, the whole experience changed. She neutralized that teacher in her existence. Yeah. Because she was no longer giving it the energy that she once did. So for all of us, no matter what, we have life experiences we're meant to have. We're going to go through it, and we have to teach our kids to feel powerful. Yep. They created it. They can get out of it. Yep. They just need to know how.
Yep. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's super powerful.
Oh, it's
and
the best.
the final tip that we have here is, don't try to create these lessons on your own. Let your kids essentially create their own lesson plan. So shape the lessons, and not necessarily get out a book. We're not talking necessarily about those kind of lessons, but life lessons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let your kids form that around what excites them. And this is the big issue that I have right now within the school system. This is why I pulled my girls out of traditional school, because I know what that feeling is like, for someone to give you a syllabus and you to be like, this is what we're learning. And it just sucks everything out of you.
It does.
And what's the point? So you're going to memorize something for a test and then forget it later because you never really cared about it in the first place. What if we skipped all that crap and let kids learn about what actually excites them? Yeah. And then that will lead to something else. And sooner or later, they'll find something that they really want to do. And then they'll be so happy and excited that they're doing that one thing and helping humanity with whatever that one thing is. You're not going to this whole Common Core thing, and you got to know a little bit about everything. I'm just like, most of that stuff is made up anyway.
I know, it really was made up. Well, and here's the best part about what AI is doing to help with this, parents. You no longer, our kids do not need to have a history class.
No.
They really don't.
No.
Okay? And what's interesting is that I've been looking around and I'm noticing that history is getting rewritten anyway all over the place. And it's like, oh my goodness, that's not what I learned in my history class. So for the purposes of having your kid grow up, they don't need information. Yeah. They need wisdom.
And inspiration.
They need a way to understand what just happened and why they felt the way that they felt.
Yep.
That's really what they're learning how to do. Because I could say to any child, what's the one thing you want to learn how to do this weekend? And they'd go, bake cookies. Okay, great. We're going to bake cookies. and and at the end of the day, yes, baking does have a regimen to it so that you can get the right number of things in the right order, etc. But I'm going to tell you this, failing fast is the number one motto of an entrepreneur. Anyone who's ever started anything, you have to learn how to fail.
Yeah.
I hope that the first batch of cookies is a giant-sized failure because you'll learn. You learn what not to do right alongside of what you learn what to do. You don't need a test. A test is just baking the cookies.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
There really is no test. You don't need to memorize what's the ingredient list. You don't need to memorize who was the inventor of the chocolate chip cookie. It doesn't really matter. Mrs. Fields, sorry. But,
Is that true? Yeah.
no, I don't know. I just made that up. I have no idea who invented the chocolate chip cookie. But at the same token, it's not important.
No.
Our kids are now at a stage where memorization is utterly a waste of time.
Yep.
Give them a computer and the ability to ask it questions, and they're going to get the information they need. So
Right.
you don't have to be encyclopedia mom. You need to be make sense of it mom. Find the values that relate to your kids. Oh, I value fun. Okay, that's good. How does that work into what you're learning about? And if it's baking cookies, washing cars, making television shows, whatever it is, let the kids apply themselves and let them fail.